Now, Harold Wilson was right when he said a week is a long time in politics. So a year is a very long time. In Jeremy Corbyn's case, a year has seen him transformed from a hopeless loser to the reincarnation of Gandhi or Nelson Mandela. Personally, I liked Labour funder J.K. Rowling's tweet on what is happening. Incompetent clowns in power and the opposition turning into a solipsistic personality cult. I'm so effing depressed. For those like me who didn't know what solipsistic meant anyway, I looked it up, and the definition is the theory that only the self exists. The Labour conference and Jeremy Corbyn now seem to think that victory is inevitable in the next election. I'm not so sure. In the end, people vote against governments as much as they vote for oppositions. So if the current government continues to look like a shambles, Corbyn might win. But if the Tories get their act together, things could be very different. One thing I am certain of, and that's that the ever-growing cult of the personality surrounding Corbyn will put off as many people as it attracts.
I'm not so sure, Greg. As you know, I am not a Corbynista in any way, shape or form, but I do think it's very hard to beat a change candidate that has momentum behind them, and in his case, he's got two forms of momentum. That's what, in a way, Obama was, that's what Trump was, that's what Macron is. I think if anything happens that means that there's a general election, I don't see how the Tories beat them. I don't, at the moment.
Well, I thought in his speech, I was quite impressed by his speech.
Were you?
Yes,
really?
I thought in terms of the philosophy of where politics is, I thought he got it about right. There's an interesting clip.
Conference, it's often said that elections can only be won from the centre ground. And, all right, in a way, that's not wrong, so long as it's clear that the political centre of gravity isn't fixed or unmovable. A new consensus is emerging from the great economic crash and the years of austerity to when people started to find a political voice. We are now the political mainstream. Yes?
I mean, I wouldn't go so far to say they're the mainstream, but I do think there has certainly been a change over a decade.
No question.
Where some people have grown very much richer and a lot of people haven't. And I think that's beginning to resonate. And I think that's where he could attract a big audience. And at the same time, of course, the Tories are currently in disarray.
Chaos, yeah.
So, but if they get their act together, and they're quite good at getting their act together, I think it might be harder than they think.
I don't know. I mean, a year and a half ago, who would have even thought we'd be having this conversation? And I think there's something happening between Corbyn and his sort of chief lieutenants in that they're preparing for government, they're preparing for leadership, and also momentum are working so hard on the ground, campaigning as if we were still in an election cycle. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. That lot are organised. They really are.
Nick, what do you reckon?
Well, it's going to be interesting when we all go up to Manchester this weekend. That's probably going to be a bloodbath. I think, in reality, let's be candid. The only way, Mr Corbyn, if you take from that speech, which was long, dear God, it was long on ambition. It's like being listening to Castro. Is he ever going to end this, man? On and on. So it was long on ambition. It was very short on detail. You know, where are the numbers? How are you going to do it? But what I sense is their best chance is that Conservatives lose the next general election rather than Labour win it, and that's probably what they're banking on, because there's no actual fully costed policies out there. What we have seen, though, where June is absolutely right, you see a party that has got considerable spring in its step, that is well organised, and what I found fascinating, a piece by a columnist in the Evening Standard, where the old Blairite, the old central Labour, whatever you want to do it, the sort of person that you were, Greg, I've no idea, they used to have access all area passes, they were welcome, they were treated almost like rock stars. They're ignored. They're getting the seats that you get if you walk off the street, and that is the way the Labour Party's going. But I still don't see that formula wins the stories. It's still for them to lose next time out.
I think part of the syndrome we're seeing is that his power base, this excitable people who are shouting, "Oh, Jeremy Corbyn," and holding up scarves, don't remember the 70s.
No,
and they don't.
Well, they weren't born.
They don't remember the fact, that life was not nearly as good then, and he's taking us back to the 70s socialist model. And, you know, he's a very nice... The thing about Jeremy Corbyn is if you meet him, you realise he genuinely does pay attention to other people. And I can't overestimate this as a quality in a politician. He makes everybody feel as if they count. Yeah. And that is going to possibly seep down into... In terms of the nitty-gritty of the speech, I mean, there wasn't any.
No, there's no
He
detail.
basically said he would raise business tax. And so where's the money for the PFI? Where's the money he's going to nationalise all these industries again? And let's see what he has to say about water, for example.
Take the water industry. Of the 9 companies in England, 6 are now owned by private equity or foreign sovereign wealth funds. Their profits are handed out in dividends to shareholders while the infrastructure crumbles. Their companies pay little or nothing in tax, and executive pay has soared as the service deteriorates. That's why we are committed to take back our utilities into public ownership.
I think, you see, he's got something about public utilities. There's something that he's not saying, I'm going to nationalise all the major companies in this country. He's saying, I'm going to nationalise things that used to belong to us.
I know, but it didn't work very well, like British Rail. Do you remember British Rail?
Well,
I do.
Except utilities were a lot cheaper when they were in,
but they made
in public ownership than they are now.
They made people... Selling off the utilities turned us into a shareholder economy, which actually worked quite well for a while because people took profit. Yeah.
He also doesn't know how private equity works. Because because private equity doesn't give dividends. It's all about buying and selling.
Yeah.
It's what it's all
about.
But
essentially what his message to conference was, you know, everything will be free and we'll get business to pay, and that is not an economic model that works.
Well, so that will resonate to people who are hurting right now.
Yeah, but what he's good at is analysis. I thought the analysis is quite good. As you say, there's nothing... How do you do this?
No.
Where do you do this? Where do you get the money to buy back the utilities?
Michelle will tell us.
Well, the first thing I'll say about this whole Corbyn thing is how weird I find and cringeworthy I find this whole cult of Corbyn, this whole chanting and cheering and scarf waving and seeing MPs on the stage with him who just a few months ago was literally trying to distance themselves from him, who were resigning positions in shadow cabinets because of him. They're suddenly best mates. They're singing his song, he's tapping his toes and clapping along. That's the first thing. I actually genuinely find it bizarre and uncomfortable because to me it seems like some kind of cult-like thing going on. That's the first thing. The second thing I will say, to be fair to Jeremy Corbyn, is I think there are a huge number of people that are really resonating and connecting with what he's saying. Yeah. They regard him as authentic. They believe and agree in the things that he's saying. And don't think that I'm going to lally here, but I can almost see some parallels between his style and Donald Trump's style.
I agree.
Obviously not politics-wise, I don't mean that policy-wise, but if you look at these people, Corbyn is engaging people that previously maybe haven't voted before, a lot of the younger people. He's galvanising them to come out and take action, i.e. vote, campaign, all the rest of it. He's speaking in a language that people can understand, they connect to him. Is there any substance behind some of the ideas that he's got? I mean, in one of the papers this morning, it was costed us £312 billion, was one of the papers' estimate of what some of these costs, like taking back control and of some of the utilities, etc., is going to cost. So one of the challenges is he's galvanising people and getting the support, which is brilliant. But then how does that translate and how well is that going to translate if Jeremy Corbyn gets into power? And the final point I would say is I went to an event with the Tories the other day where they were talking about how can we make ourselves more, connecting to the youth and other people, etc. And I walked away from that event just thinking, good grief, you stand no chance. I literally looked at them and thought, how is this collection of people, this set of policies, going to resonate with people that are much younger, I don't know. Yeah, poorer, more disenfranchised. And I genuinely couldn't see how they're going to make that leap and join those dots.
No, but Rachel, you were talking about they weren't there in the 70s when what it was like. It doesn't matter.
I know,
it doesn't matter.
Look, it's interesting
you
still win.
It's interesting, though, that today Theresa May's chosen to make a speech. In a way, you could read it as a counterpoint to what Jeremy Corbyn was saying yesterday, setting out how we live in Great Britain. This is a market capitalist economy.
Well, it's the anniversary. It's 20 years since, of course,
it's the
that's
Bank
why
of
she
England.
chose that.
But
yes,
selling
I know, but interesting juxtaposition.
But selling modern-day capitalism
is a
hard
hard
sell.
Very hard sell.
Because a lot of people have done really badly in
and
that
a lot
20
of
years.
fat cats have done very
You
well.
keep talking, right, that, not everybody is 25 with a laptop and just going off to university. There are some of us around who remember the 70s. And Mr Corbyn talked about being in a time warp of politics. Well, if anybody is in a time warp of politics, I would suggest it was some of his ideas. Greater state control, more power to the trades unions, more state interference. That is what we had in the 70s, and that's what led to us being the
Tory government.
Yes, I know.
Nick.
No, I know. I appreciate that.
It wasn't all the Labour government.
No, I agree, but why would you go back to that?
But Nick, if that's attractive to a generation, and it's not.
But they don't
it's
remember.
Not only,
They don't remember.
But
It's
not only
Hold on.
kids.
They weren't doing their bloody
It's-
homework by candlelight, and I was.
But Nick,
that's what it was
Nick,
like. You had candles because you didn't have any
Nick,
light.
that's not the point. I didn't.
But it
agree-
is the
no,
bloody point, because I lived through it.
I didn't agree with anything Donald Trump said, but he still won. The point is, there are people who will listen to what Corbyn's saying and they will vote for him.
But they're not. We're not all 20.
But the Tories aren't coming up with a proper counter narrative.
Yeah, they're
not that I
Nick
want
is
them
bang
to. But
right, because what Jeremy Corbyn's basically saying is everything's going to be fine and other people are going to pay. And I think it was Margaret Thatcher who said socialism works very, very well until you run out of other people's money.
Precisely.
So where is it all coming from? And tinkering around with business rates or tax is not going to cut it.
well, I'm sure Corbyn will let us know when he's in number 10.
The money, where the money tree is.
Look, don't forget he took the Labour vote from 30% to 40%.
They still lost.